So now that we have gone through all the factors affecting the pricing of a product portfolio, let's summarize the steps a retail business should go through to price its products correctly. First, the business needs to define its positioning in the market. Is it a value retailer, a premium brand, or a luxury retailer? Then the business needs to identify the different pricing methods that will be available to it, that are in line with its positioning. For example, a value retailer could depend mainly on value pricing or everyday low price, and maybe also use bundle pricing, and so on. A premium or luxury brand will depend mainly on perceived value pricing and other pricing methods that are in line with the premium positioning. Then the business needs to determine its overall target margin for the business. This can be obtained from the final P&L budget, and a new business can use industry benchmarks for its respective retail category as a starting point. We are going to leave a link to the benchmarks page in the attachments. We will then break the sales and margins down by category because each category will have a different pricing approach. For larger businesses, they might even need to divide it down by subcategories. We will summarize how much each category contributes to the business in terms of sales and margins. This is primarily dependent on historical data from category sales and margins, and for a new business, it should be based on an estimate based on how much each category is expected to deliver. Let's see an example. Total budgeted sales for the year is $100,000 at 58% margin. Category 1 gives me a realized margin of 67% and contributes 70% to my sales. Category 2 gives me a realized margin of 40% and contributes 20%. And Category 3 gives me 34% margin and contributes 10%. So now we know the contribution of each category, and this will allow us to determine our overall margin and the margin we need to realize from each category in order to reach the total target margin of 58%. Now we need to determine the discount level of each category. That's because not all categories will go through the same markdowns and discounts. For example, Category 1 is our main category. We carry a lot of stock on hand in this category and it's seasonal. That's to say, we cannot sell summer stocks in winter. So we can expect the markdown level here to be high. Depending on how many markdown events we will run and how deep the discount level is, and all this is based on the marketing calendar. If we want to realize 67% at the end of the year on this one, then we have to initially price it at, say, 75% intake margin. If this is not your first year trading, you can get a guidance from last year's figures to know the discount level of each category. If not, then you will have to give estimates and forecasts for each category and run all the numbers. For example, you could say I will sell 40% of the merchandise at full price, then I will launch a 25% markdown and expect to sell 30% of the merchandise at this level. And then we'll have a 50% markdown and we'll sell the remaining of the merchandise at that level. Category 2 is a basics category. It consists of basic t-shirts that sell all year round and I don't usually need to discount them, except maybe for a few promotions from time to time to drive sales. So if I want to realize 40% on this category, I can price it at say 43% intake, assuming only 5% discount rate, which has been the case for this category last year. Of course, the price at 43% should be realistic for the market, based on the pricing method we used for this category. For example, here, this is a basics category that's carried by other retailers with no differentiation, so we need to use the going rate pricing method and make sure that our price is to a great extent in line with the competition. In the case of Category 1, the product is highly differentiated, so we use the perceived value pricing, and that's why we were able to have such a high intake margin. Another category could be for traffic building only, so we apply the loss leader pricing strategy and have a very low or even no margin for that category. This is made possible by other high margin categories such as Category number 1. One thing to consider here, the intake margin that we determine for each category is an average. It does not mean that you will sell all products in this category at this exact margin. For example, you might have one product that you get discount on from the supplier and now can get a much higher margin on it. so it will have a slightly higher margin. For another product within the category, you might have to sell it at a slightly lower margin because of the competition, so it will have a slightly lower margin. The main thing is that the total average for the ordered products within this category or subcategory should fall in line with the targeted intake margin you determined for it. In the attached pricing template, you will find the margin for each item as well as the total margin for the entire order at the end of the sheet. This should also guide you during your buying process and your supplier negotiations, as in many cases you will have to pass on some products that you cannot buy because their end price will not appeal to your target customers, or because the competition is selling them at a much lower price that you cannot sell at based on the supplier price. The final step is adding costs, which we've explained in details in a previous lesson. In the attached pricing template, you will add the total costs in the costing field at the right and the total order quantity. This will give you the amount to add to each item. Then you will set your sale price in the retail price field, and the margin will be calculated after costs in the margin field. After pricing all the items in the order at the bottom, you will find the total margin for this order. This margin should be in line with the intake margin you are targeting for the category or subcategory the order belongs to. As we mentioned before, not all products in the order have to be priced at the same margin. Some products can be a little bit higher and others can be lower. The main thing is that the total margin at the end should be in line with the target margin. This approach in pricing allows us to use different pricing methods and sell at different margin levels to make the most out of our entire product portfolio. We get to be competitive when selling competitive items and get to extract more profits when selling differentiated high-value items. We even get to sell some products at no or low margins and use them for marketing and traffic building. And most importantly, our pricing is in line with our brand positioning and is also in line with our financial budgets.